95% of your thoughts today are exactly the same as the thoughts you had yesterday. And if you're watching this right now, chances are the majority of those thoughts are spinning in an endless loop inside your head, creating scenarios that never happen, replaying conversations that are already over, and keeping you paralyzed in a state of constant mental exhaustion that the ancient Stoics called voluntary suffering. But today you're going to learn how to stop it once and for all. Think about it for a second and be brutally honest with yourself. How many opportunities have you already lost in your life simply because you were thinking too much, analyzing every possible outcome, weighing every potential consequence until the moment passed, and someone else took action while you were still trapped inside your own mind? The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the slave-turned-philosopher Epictetus, and the wealthy statesman Seneca all faced challenges that would crush most people. Yet they developed a system of thinking that allowed them to act with clarity, make decisions without hesitation, and sleep peacefully at night while the world around them burned with chaos and uncertainty. In this video, you're going to discover 5 Stoic techniques that are simple enough to apply today, but powerful enough to completely transform the way your mind operates. And these aren't just philosophical ideas that sound good on paper, but fail in real life. These are battle-tested methods that have been used by emperors, warriors, entrepreneurs, and free thinkers for over 2,000 years to master their thoughts and take control of their lives. Make sure you stay until the very end, because I'm going to share with you the exact resource that personally helped me stop the mental overload, break free from the cycle of overthinking, and build a life of true financial freedom where I'm no longer trapped by fear, doubt, or the need for external validation. Before we dive into the 5 remedies, we need to understand what overthinking actually is according to the Stoics, because most people completely misunderstand this concept and think that overthinking simply means thinking too much, but that's not what the ancient philosophers were talking about at all. The real problem isn't the quantity of your thoughts, it's the quality and the control you have over them. And Epictetus said it perfectly when he wrote that what troubles men is not the things themselves, but the judgments they form about those things, which means that your suffering doesn't come from external reality, but from the stories you tell yourself about that reality. Let me break down the actual mechanism of the overthinking cycle so you can see exactly what's happening inside your brain when you get trapped in this pattern. Because once you understand the mechanics, you can interrupt it. It starts with a single thought. Maybe something someone said to you, or something you need to do tomorrow. And then your mind immediately begins to interpret that thought, adding layers of meaning, assumption, and prediction that weren't part of the original input. From there, your brain starts generating scenarios, playing out conversations that haven't happened yet, imagining outcomes that are statistically unlikely, and creating emotional reactions to events that exist only in your imagination. And this cascade of mental activity triggers anxiety, stress, and a feeling of being overwhelmed even though nothing has actually happened in the real world. The reason your brain loves to overanalyze everything is because it's trying to protect you, but it's using an outdated survival mechanism that was designed for physical threats like predators and natural disasters, not for modern challenges like career decisions and relationship dynamics. Your mind creates the illusion of control by running through every possible scenario, convincing you that if you just think about it long enough, you'll find the perfect answer and avoid all pain and failure. But this is a trap because the more you think, the less you act, and the less you act, the more you think, creating a downward spiral that keeps you stuck in place while life passes you by. There's also a neurological component here that most people don't realize. Your brain actually releases small amounts of dopamine when you ruminate, which means overthinking can become a mental habit that feels productive even though it's destroying your progress. And breaking this habit requires the same approach the Stoics used 2 millennia ago. The Stoics weren't trying to suppress thoughts or pretend they didn't exist. They were learning how to domesticate their minds, to train their thinking the way you would train a wild animal. And that's exactly what you're going to learn to do starting right now with the first remedy. The first Stoic remedy for overthinking is called the dichotomy of control, and this single concept has the power to eliminate about 80% of your mental suffering if you actually apply it consistently in your daily life. The core principle is incredibly simple, but most people never truly internalize it. You need to radically separate what depends on you from what doesn't depend on you, and then you need to direct 100% of your mental energy toward the things you can control while completely releasing everything else. The reason overthinking dominates your life is because you're operating under the illusion that everything depends on you, that if you just think hard enough or worry intensely enough, you can somehow influence outcomes that are fundamentally outside your sphere of control. Let me give you some concrete examples so you can see exactly what falls into each category, because this distinction is the foundation of Stoic wisdom, and once you get it, everything else becomes easier. What other people think about you is completely outside your control. You can influence it through your actions and words, but you cannot control the thoughts and judgments that form in someone else's mind. And yet most people spend hours every day worrying about opinions they can never truly know or change. The final result of any project, business venture, or creative work is also outside your control, because results depend on market conditions, timing, other people's decisions, and countless variables you cannot predict or manipulate. But what you can control is the quality of your work, the consistency of your effort, and the decisions you make in each moment. The only thing that truly depends on you is your action in the present moment, your attitude, your response, and your choices. And when you focus exclusively on these elements, overthinking loses its grip because you're no longer wasting energy on things you cannot change. Here's a practical exercise you can do right now that will immediately reduce your mental load and help you apply the dichotomy of control in your actual life instead of just understanding it intellectually. Take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and draw 2 columns, one labeled within my control and one labeled outside my control. Then take whatever situation is currently causing you stress or overthinking and list every single element of that situation in one column or the other, being brutally honest about what you can actually influence versus what you're just worrying about. Once you've completed this exercise, make a conscious decision to delete 100% of the mental energy you're spending on the second column. And every time you catch yourself thinking about something outside your control, immediately redirect your attention to the first column and ask yourself what action you can take right now. Let me tell you a story about Marcus Aurelius that perfectly illustrates this principle in action, because he wasn't just a philosopher writing in an ivory tower. He was a Roman emperor leading an empire under constant threat from barbarian invasions, political betrayal, and economic collapse. When Germanic tribes invaded the northern borders of Rome, Marcus Aurelius couldn't control whether they would attack, how many soldiers they would bring, or what the weather conditions would be during battle. But he could control his orders to his generals, his own discipline and preparation, his ability to remain calm under pressure, and his commitment to doing his duty regardless of the outcome. He wrote in his personal journal, which we now call the Meditations, that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way, which means he transformed obstacles into opportunities by focusing only on what he could control in each moment. The fundamental insight here is that overthinking disappears the moment you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, because 90% of the thoughts spinning in your head right now are about things you cannot change. And the remaining 10% are about actions you could take if you weren't so busy thinking about the other 90%. The second Stoic remedy is called the pre-mortem, and this technique might sound counterintuitive at first, but it's one of the most powerful tools for transforming anxiety into clarity and stopping the endless spiral of worst-case scenario thinking that keeps you awake at night. The pre-mortem means imagining what could go wrong before you take action, but doing it in a rational, structured way rather than letting your mind run wild with catastrophic fantasies that have no basis in reality. And the reason this works is because it takes the vague, shapeless fear that fuels overthinking and turns it into a concrete plan that your logical brain can actually work with. Most people think that imagining negative outcomes will make them more anxious. But the opposite is true when you do it the Stoic way, because the real source of anxiety isn't the thought of failure itself. It's the uncertainty and lack of control you feel when your mind generates random worst-case scenarios without any structure or resolution. When you deliberately conduct a pre-mortem, you're taking back control of the narrative, you're forcing your brain to be specific instead of abstract, and you're creating a roadmap for how you would handle challenges if they actually occurred, which immediately reduces the emotional charge around those potential outcomes. Here's exactly how you conduct a Stoic premortem, so you can use this technique the next time you find yourself overthinking a decision or opportunity. First, ask yourself what the worst realistic scenario would be. And notice that I said realistic, not catastrophic, because your goal is to identify outcomes that could actually happen based on evidence and probability, not to indulge in apocalyptic fantasies that have a 0.001% chance of occurring. Second, ask yourself what you would do if that worst-case scenario actually happened, and be as specific as possible about the actions you would take, the resources you would use, and the backup plans you would implement. Third, ask yourself what actions you can take right now to prevent that scenario from happening or to minimize its impact if it does occur. And this is where overthinking transforms into strategy. Let me give you a concrete example so you can see how this plays out in real life, whether it's in relationships, career decisions, or business ventures. Imagine you're considering starting a side business, but you're overthinking all the ways it could fail, and your mind is generating endless scenarios about losing money, looking foolish, or wasting time on something that doesn't work. Instead of letting those thoughts spiral, you conduct a premortem. The worst realistic scenario is that you invest 3 months and $500 and the business doesn't generate any revenue. So you ask yourself what you would do in that situation, and the answer might be that you would treat it as a learning experience. Keep your main job for stability, and try a different approach or idea. Then you ask what actions you could take to prevent this outcome. And you might decide to test the idea with a smaller investment first, to validate demand before building the product, or to set a clear timeline and budget so you don't overextend yourself. And suddenly the fear transforms into a plan. The vagueness becomes concrete, and your brain stops generating catastrophic scenarios because it has something productive to focus on. The reason the premortem is so effective at stopping overthinking is because overthinking thrives in ambiguity and dies in clarity. And when you force yourself to be specific about what could go wrong and how you would handle it, you remove the fuel that keeps the anxiety burning. The Stoics understood that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, as Seneca said. And the premortem is the antidote because it brings your imagination under conscious control instead of letting it run wild with abstract fears that have no structure or solution. The third Stoic remedy is what I call the operational present. And this is the practice of bringing your mind back to the only moment where action actually exists, which is right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not in some imagined future where everything has to be perfect before you can begin. The Stoics lived in what they called the operational present, which means they focused exclusively on what needed to be done in the current moment, and they refused to let their minds wander into the past or the future except when it was strategically useful for planning or learning. Most people spend their entire lives living everywhere except the present moment. And this is the primary cause of overthinking, because when your mind is constantly jumping between past regrets and future anxieties, you're never fully engaged with the reality that's actually in front of you. And this creates a sense of disconnection and overwhelm that makes even simple tasks feel impossible. The Stoics had a simple but profound question they would ask themselves whenever they felt their mind beginning to spiral into overthinking. And that question was, what needs to be done now? Not what might need to be done tomorrow, or what should have been done yesterday. But what is the single most important action you can take in this exact moment with the resources and information you have right now? Here's a practical exercise you can use immediately to bring yourself back to the operational present whenever you catch yourself overthinking. And this technique is so simple that most people dismiss it, but it's also so effective that it's been used by Stoic practitioners for thousands of years. Take one slow, deep breath, and as you breathe in, become aware of the physical sensations in your body, the feeling of air entering your lungs, the subtle movements of your chest and abdomen, and the sound of your breath. And as you breathe out, ask yourself the Stoic question: what needs to be done right now? Not what could be done, not what should be done, not what you wish you had done, but what actual action exists in this present moment that would move you forward, and then do that one thing without thinking about step 2, step 3, or step 50. There's a story about Epictetus that illustrates this principle perfectly. And even though he was once a slave and suffered tremendous hardship throughout his life, he developed a mental clarity that allowed him to act decisively while others were paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. One of his students came to him anxious about an upcoming battle, and the student was overthinking every possible outcome, worrying about death, defeat, and dishonor. And Epictetus listened patiently and then asked him a simple question: "What is your duty right now?" The student said his duty was to train and prepare, and Epictetus replied, "Then train and prepare, and let the future take care of itself, because the future doesn't exist yet, and worrying about it steals energy from the only moment where you have power, which is now." The profound insight here is that your mind constantly tries to pull you into tomorrow because it believes it's helping you prepare and protect yourself. But in reality, it's sabotaging your ability to take effective action today. And the Stoic remedy is to gently but firmly bring your attention back to the present moment every single time it wanders. This doesn't mean you never plan for the future or learn from the past. It means you do those things consciously and strategically in the present moment, rather than letting your mind randomly bounce between timelines without your permission. And when you master this skill, overthinking loses 90% of its power because you're no longer feeding it with attention and energy. The fourth Stoic remedy is the practice of Stoic journaling. And this is one of the most underrated techniques for eliminating overthinking because it creates a daily ritual that clarifies your thoughts, simplifies your decisions, and discharges the mental pressure that builds up throughout the day. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations as a form of journaling, not because he intended to publish them, but because he needed a way to process his thoughts, examine his actions, and maintain clarity in the midst of chaos. And you can use the same technique to transform your relationship with your own mind. The reason journaling is so effective at stopping overthinking is because it forces you to externalize your thoughts, to take the abstract mental loops spinning inside your head and convert them into concrete words on a page. And this simple act of translation immediately reduces the emotional intensity and helps you see patterns you couldn't recognize while the thoughts were still trapped inside. Most people's minds are like web browsers with 50 tabs open at once, each tab playing a different video, generating notifications, and demanding attention. And journaling is the process of closing those tabs one by one until you have clarity and focus. Here's a simple 3-question format you can use for Stoic journaling that will take you less than 5 minutes per day, but will dramatically reduce rumination and mental clutter over time. First question: what did I do well today? And this isn't about bragging or inflating your ego. It's about acknowledging progress and recognizing the actions that were within your control and that you executed effectively. Second question: what could I have done better? And again, this isn't about self-criticism or beating yourself up. It's about honest self-examination and identifying specific adjustments you can make tomorrow. Third question: what didn't depend on me? And this is where you list all the outcomes, other people's reactions, and external circumstances that were outside your control, so you can consciously release them and stop carrying that mental weight. The psychological effect of this simple practice is profound because it creates clarity where there was confusion. It simplifies where there was complexity. It discharges the mental pressure that would otherwise keep you awake at night, replaying conversations and second-guessing decisions. And it prevents the rumination that turns small mistakes into catastrophic failures inside your mind. When you write something down, you're telling your brain that it no longer needs to keep reminding you about it. And this is why many people report sleeping better and feeling more focused after they start consistent journaling practice, because they're finally giving their mind permission to let go of the thoughts that have been recycling through their consciousness all day long. The fifth and final Stoic remedy is what I call the eagle's view. And this is the practice of taking radical perspective on your problems by zooming out mentally and seeing them from a distance, the way an eagle flying high above the earth would see a landscape that appears chaotic and overwhelming when you're standing in the middle of it. The Stoics were masters of perspective, and they understood that most of our suffering comes from being too close to our problems, from having our face pressed right up against the details so that a small obstacle looks like an insurmountable mountain and a temporary setback feels like a permanent defeat. Marcus Aurelius used this technique constantly in his writings, And he would often remind himself to imagine looking at his problems from outer space, from the perspective of the cosmos, where human concerns and dramas appear tiny and temporary. And this wasn't about minimizing real challenges or pretending problems don't matter. It was about seeing them in their proper proportion so he could respond with wisdom instead of reacting with panic. The eagle's view doesn't make problems disappear, but it does make them manageable, because when you see something from a distance, you can see the whole situation instead of just the part that's causing you pain right now. Here's how you apply the eagle's view technique. Whenever you find yourself overthinking a problem that feels overwhelming and all-consuming in the moment, ask yourself 3 simple questions. Will this problem still be important in 1 year? And be honest about whether the issue you're agonizing over right now will even register on your radar 12 months from now. Ask yourself, will this problem still be important in 5 years? And notice how many of your current concerns completely disappear when you extend the timeline to half a decade. Ask yourself, will this problem still be important in 10 years? And at this distance, almost everything that feels urgent and critical today becomes background noise. And this perspective shift doesn't mean you ignore present challenges. It means you allocate your mental energy proportionally to their actual significance in the grand arc of your life. The reason overthinking appears so powerful is because your mental view is too close to the problem. You're examining every detail, analyzing every nuance, and catastrophizing every potential outcome because you don't have any perspective on the scale and scope of what you're facing. But when you zoom out and see your challenge from the eagle's view, those micro problems that were consuming your entire consciousness suddenly become small, manageable, and temporary. This is one of the most freeing realizations you can have because it means that the intensity of your overthinking is often inversely proportional to the actual importance of what you're thinking about. And when you adjust your mental zoom level, you automatically reduce the anxiety and regain the clarity you need to take effective action. Now that you understand the 5 Stoic remedies for overthinking, the question that remains is how you actually implement these techniques and create lasting change in your life, instead of just feeling inspired for a few days and then falling back into old patterns. The Stoics were obsessed with action, not just philosophy, and Epictetus said that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, which means knowledge without application is worthless, and understanding without execution is just another form of overthinking disguised as progress. Many people consume content like this. They learn powerful ideas, they feel motivated and ready to change, but then they never take the first step because they're still trapped in the pattern of overanalysis, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect strategy, the perfect circumstances before they begin. And this is exactly what the Stoics warned against. One of the biggest levers of freedom available to you today is the ability to generate income online and build a life where you're not dependent on a single employer, a single income stream, or a single geographical location. And this is where philosophy meets practical reality because financial independence gives you the space to actually live according to Stoic principles instead of just reading about them. If you want to stop living in survival mode, overthinking every decision because you're afraid of losing your job or running out of money, if you want to create a system that generates revenue automatically so you can focus on what actually matters in your life, if you want to build real independence where you're making decisions based on your values rather than your fears, then I highly recommend the training program I personally went through that taught me how to create an online income from scratch, even though I had 0 experience and no technical skills when I started. This is a complete system for building financial freedom through online business, and it walks you through every step from choosing a profitable model to generating your first dollar to scaling to full-time income and beyond. And I'm putting the link in the description below because this is exactly the kind of action-oriented resource the Stoics would have used if they were alive today. Let me quickly recap the 5 Stoic remedies we covered so you can take action on them immediately instead of letting this knowledge disappear into the void of forgotten videos you once watched. First, the dichotomy of control. Separate what depends on you from what doesn't and focus 100% of your energy on what you can actually control. Second, the premortem. Imagine what could go wrong rationally. And specifically, so fear transforms into a plan and anxiety becomes clarity. Third, the operational present. Bring your mind back to the only moment where action exists by asking what needs to be done right now. Fourth, Stoic journaling. Spend 5 minutes each day answering 3 questions to clarify your thoughts and discharge mental pressure. Fifth, the eagle's view. Zoom out and see your problems from a distance so they shrink to their proper proportion and you can respond with wisdom instead of panic. Choose one of these remedies and commit to practicing it today, not tomorrow, not next week, but in the next hour. And if you want to go further and start building the financial freedom that allows you to actually live these principles instead of just studying them, click the link in the description to access the complete training program that will walk you through creating an online income step by step. Comment "Stop Overthinking" below if you want more videos on Stoic philosophy and practical techniques for mental mastery. And make sure you subscribe because the next video is going to teach you how to apply Stoic principles to build unbreakable discipline and achieve goals that seem impossible right now. And this is knowledge that can literally transform your entire trajectory if you actually apply it instead of just consuming it passively like entertainment.